been quite a morning, hasn't it? I'm sorry. We started off, of course, with Mother Natasha and doing a whole memorial to her, and I thought that was pretty important. And then jumped into the Wick Theater, which is fantastic. We just saw MAME there. If you haven't seen it, I think it's on for a few more days. But make sure you go to the next thing, the next theater presentation. I think you heard Marilyn tell you all about La Caja Fall, and it goes on and on. It's really wonderful. But now I have a dear friend as well as a colleague whom I respect greatly. And he's been on my show before. He does a lot of his own things. But Harry Getzov. And you know, it's funny, Harry. I'm just going to be a little funny. What's Harry Getzov doing now? You get off on a lot of things, and you really make a difference with the seniors. But I thought maybe we would start philosophically today. Harry, you, of course, have had other professions, and you're a very charismatic and talented young man. How do you like that? You're welcome. But now that you have found a passion in your life, being with the older adults and making them shine, that's really what you do. What is it that you have found? A very nice, it's like I call a thin line of what, you know, in an opera, there's a thing.
Libretto?
No, not the libretto. There's a certain, or it's not only an opera.
Motif.
Yeah, maybe it's motif, but in Wagner even, there's a certain thing, there's a melody that always seems to come back, and you as a musician.
Motif.
I think it's another word, but motif,
right.
But there's something lighter, lighter or something that says, you always hear that. And I think you've been looking, and you're enjoying something that when you interview the older adult, that always comes out and you make them shine, and yet it nurtures you. That's what I think about you.
You know, I heard you mention MAME. I wanted to start singing MAME, but I'm always going to come back to music because, you know, that's my father's background, and I'm doing these songwriter workshops now at all these senior communities. You don't even know about that. So I'm going back to music, which is what I love. And I was at a retreat about a month or two ago in the Berkshires at Kripalu, a writer's retreat, yoga retreat, meditation, whatever. And in the experience, a couple of songs, because for 1 week of my life, I did not use my computer. I did not use my cell phone. Everything was shut off, and it was one of the hardest experiences, but one of the best experiences I've had. There was a song or two that came to mind, a couple of Billy Joel tunes, but there was a song by the Eagles, your listeners may know it, called Take It to the Limit. Do you know the song?
I've heard of it. I can't
I'm not
sing
going
it
to sing
in
it.
my brain.
I could, but I'm not going to sing it here.
Oh, okay.
The chorus goes, put me on a highway and show me a sign and take it to the limit one more time. And it dawned on me when it comes to seniors, one of the things that inspires me personally, but I see it also inspiring other people, is people are living much, much longer than they themselves will admit when I do the workshops. They're living longer than a lot of them ever thought they'd ever live. And I am so inspired by people who are taking it to the limit. In other words, when I say that has a lot of meaning to it. I don't know if you understand where I'm going.
I'm understanding.
They're doing things. There are challenges. I'm not naive. I see it. Aches, pains, illness. We know about Alzheimer's. We know about some of the other diseases that can come on that didn't exist years ago because people were gone. But people often surrender. The people who I connect with the most, and hopefully the people I am able to inspire, maybe the people who aren't there, they're doing things. Lifelong learning, the whole umbrella of lifelong learning is amazing because people want to continue to soak up information. They start to paint when they're older. They start to compose songs. There's this one woman who never composed songs her whole life. When I see things like that, it spurs me on. It makes me want to interview them, obviously, and talk with them and say, why are you doing this? So that's one line. The idea of taking it to the limit. I used to have another phrase, but I like take it to the limit better. Going strong to the finish line. But I don't want to dwell on the finish line so much. Take it to the limit. If people know the song, if you listen to it, the lyrics actually adhere to this pretty nicely too. So,
but you see, it really needs people surrounding them who appreciate them and who can bring out the best in them. And that's something that you are very talented at, because so many people on the outside have a wrong impression of what it's like as one ages. And I always say it may be the skin changes, but the spirit's the same. And you have to get to the spirit. Now, there'll be people who weren't great when they were younger, and they're not great now. And so, but you can't put a label that all older people are like that.
Do you remember, I interviewed Maya Angelou. I was blessed and lucky enough to sit with her and interview her. And she talks in the book, in Gold. I wrote this book called Gold. It's the word old with little g in front of it. The extraordinary side of aging revealed through inspiring conversations. Well, she talks about courage as being the most important virtue that you can have in one's life. It fuels everything else. And she spoke about how you're not born with courage, because, of course, my question to her was, well, how do you build courage? And when I do speeches, I'll very often go off into an area where I say, I don't know on a biological level, the Dr. Mencia, is that his name?
That's it.
I should
Dr.
ask him
Andy
about this.
Mencia, who will be here at 7 o'clock.
All right. I've heard that at a cellular level, the human body can actually start to deteriorate at a very early age, like 11 or something. Not to depress everybody out there this morning, but it's minor. But as the idea is, as we age, there's deterioration. There's a downhill slope if you graph it. But there are things, and we have talked about this before, as you grow older, like courage, like soul, wisdom, that if you could graph it, it would be on the upswing as you get older. Wisdom, courage, soul. I will often interview people sometimes during the speeches I do, or talk with them in the audience, and I'll say, do you react to a troubling situation the same way now as you did when you were 20? No. Well, that would be a growth. That is the thing that I like to get people to focus on. They remind me that I'm getting older. I'm going to be 57 day after tomorrow. What's today? Tomorrow I'm going to be 57 years old. I'm not a child anymore. I'm getting to the point where I'm getting closer to the people who I interview, it seems like, as each day goes by. But it's not all about downhill movement. And that's the kind of thing that now I ask myself, why do I want to do this? Maybe part of it is selfish. Maybe part of it is this is the way I want to be as I grow older. So I want to sort of train myself. But I notice that when I talk with people, I feel joy in hearing their experiences, but I also feel joy when they come up to me and they hug me and they go, you make me feel kind of a gusto after you speak, because it makes me realize that I can go. I don't have to save the world and be Golda Meir or Mahatma Gandhi at age 80. But you know what? I've always wanted to take a singing lesson, or I may have wanted to just write down. I try to encourage people to write their memoirs, which is why I do this My Long Story Short thing, because I want people to, you have time, why not reflect and talk about all of these things that I'm talking about right now with you? Growth. Because people are, I think, if I ask the question to an audience, how many of you really thought you would still be around today? So many people, Anita, say they didn't think they would be.
When Bill and I wrote the book, Live to be 100 Plus, in 1992, and I made many speeches talking about that and giving away the book and had T-shirts, they just couldn't believe it. But I had a test, and they all had to take the test, and many of them were gasping that they're going to live to be 105, 107, and that was in 1992. So what you're experiencing now, I really did experience, and I knew with the high technology, with what was coming, and that was in 1992. So that's that's like 20 years ago, right? It was so obvious that people who were 95, 100, I was just looking at something, I don't know if you got a chance to read this in the December issue, but we interviewed it's actually the mother of, maybe it isn't this one, it's the mother of the owner of Comcast.
I did see that.
Yes, and she's fantastic. She's in her 90s, and she has a television show. Here she is, Suzanne Roberts.
You got to love that.
And Suzanne Roberts is a magnificent woman. Now, it's quite a funny story that she talks about. Now she has a very serious hearing loss, but she still goes on. She does what she can do, and she's just a charmer. But she loves to bring all different kind of people on her show the same way that you're talking about. So here's a woman, 92.
Well, you've heard me. I like with the facts. I would sometimes say things. I want to find out about that biological cellular level idea. But, the average lifespan in the year 1900, when I do the speech now, there's a slide. It says, what a difference a century makes, okay? So in 1900, do you know what the average longevity was?
I think it was about 40.
It was 47.3.
Yeah, right.
It is now, average lifespan now is close to 80. It's 79. You know this. 81 for women, 71.
And you know that the longer someone lives, the longer they're going to live?
Chance to live, exactly. But and I thought that number sounded low to me. But when I go to Morse Life or the Carlisle or V or the 5 Stars, the average age in those senior communities was more like 88, 87. Morse is very proud. They're like 92. So they've more than doubled. They've more than doubled the age. So, that's the kind of thing. So when people are in a stage of their life where they're thinking to themselves, here I am, and if I lived in 1900, I would have been living to age 47.3. Now think about that. We've almost doubled the lifespan in our time period. So what do you do with that extra time? And I think our culture in many ways is struggling with what to do with this 30 years of extra life thing that's going on, right?
So since Dr. Mencia just walked in, Harry, I thought maybe what you would do is ask him the question that you wanted to know about, what happens to a person's cells.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know what? I was just telling Anita that I will talk about how we were talking about the kinds of things that actually you can graph, if you could graph them, on the upswing as people get older. Things like courage, things like wisdom. It's not all about, decline. But I really do want to know for a fact, this is so great, I'm looking around the metal. At what age does the human body actually, at some level, at a physical level, start to deteriorate?
Start aging or deteriorating.
Yeah.
You said young when you...
Well, I thought it was young.
It's a cycle. The cycle starts from once we are born. Many cells are reproducing. So we look at the brain of a newborn. It's fast reproducing itself because now that brain will be utilized. And the muscles in the body will be reproducing, where the skin cell, which is the largest organ that we have in the body, sort of go in a smoother regression. But if you look at the skin cell, you always have that baby skin at the bottom of the lower layer of the skin. And as the skin starts moving toward the surface, then you have the dead skin. And why some people have faster speed of deterioration versus other individuals is how we treat our body. And a good example, when you look at the skin of a person, you look at a person that lives in the high mountains of Peru, that they use no sunblocker or anything like that. They get exposed to the sun. And a 50-year-old person can look like a 90-year-old person in the skin. Where you look at a Buddha from China that is always protected, it's always covered, avoids sun exposure, and a Chinese monk that can be 99 years old, you say it's no older than 70. So we produce a lot of damage, and in our country, we are a developed country, but that is a double edge because we get exposed to so much more chemical than a underdeveloped country. We move away from nature and so much more into technology. So we get exposed to all kinds of radiation and things that other people don't have, if you want to call it that privilege.
Certainly our food.
Yes, that food, a lot of processed food.
You don't really know Harry, and I want to just ask you a question, because it's very interesting. Harry has a degree in law, and he was with music. He represented musicians, but now he just adores the older adults, and he does videos of them, and I think as much as he enjoys, I mean, these people are really benefiting. They're gaining a lot from what he does. He himself gains so much. So why is it, and this is not a fair question to ask you because it's very philosophical, why is it that someone like, I know, someone like Anita or someone like Harry, and even yourself, because you're so well trained in geriatrics, what is it, what's the tendency? Why do we want so much to be with the older adults, help them, compared to some people who have no interest in it? Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from the value that are instilled in us. I know in my family in Hawaii, we believe in the extended family. So we grew up with great-grandma and grandpa and daddy and mommy and uncle. And having the extended family, it sort of have to get instilled in you. Nowadays, you get a lot of small nucleus family, single mother, single father with one child. And they grow up like that. They don't know anything else but that mother or that father. They know there's a grandma, maybe it's in another country, or there is no grandmother. They die young. So some people, I guess, they have not had the privilege, and sometimes I hear about Big Brother organizations, and I think it's time for us to start thinking of organization like what you are doing, basically to cater to the elderly. And I tell you, as a geriatrician, the best part, I tell my students from Nova University and FAU, all of the universities that I teach, and they come to learn about medicine. And I say medicine is not just the biological part of medicine. It's the biopsychosocial. There's a biological component. There is a psychological component to anything we do. And there is a social component. And I tell them the best part of taking a history for me as a geriatrician is the social part. When I hear from my patient, I fought in World War II, and I did this and I did that. I had a patient that he still is alive. So he was the father of Motorola in Israel. So the founding father, he brought Motorola to Israel. And then United States bought the company and brought him over to the United States, him and the family. And him and his sister, they are both my patient. And you see this guy, he's almost 90 years old, play tennis every day. But the pride I have is to say, wow, look who is my patient.
And you never know who you're going to meet.
Exactly.
Can I tell you quickly? You'll appreciate this. So I did law for a while, and at one point I tried to marry my love of seniors, which I came to understand as I got older, with my love of law, which I did. And I tried to practice elder law, which I do some work now for an attorney. But when I was trying to do it myself, I went to a meeting one day. This was a watermark in my life when you mentioned the war. And a guy, and I was getting ready to do this thing about revocable living trusts, which I definitely believe in, but I didn't really like the work. And as I'm waiting to have the meeting, this little man, Leslie Nielsen, not the famous one, but another little man walks in, and he pokes me and he goes, "You know what today is?" And I go, "No, Leslie, what is it?" He goes, "Today is the anniversary of the storming of Omaha Beach, and I was there." And he proceeds to run down to his car. He brings up a journal, and he kept a journal of the day. He had pieces of shrapnel in it and netting. And he comes up, and there was a table of about 40 people. Meanwhile, the other lawyer hadn't showed up yet to do the workshop we were going to do. And he proceeds to talk. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, about 45 people around this table. I don't know if I've ever told you this story. It's in my book because it was a watershed moment. Right. And I look around. I like doing this anyway. I looked around the table, and everybody was listening to Leslie describe the day. And everybody was like this, and you can't see it on radio.
With their mouth open.
Yeah. Everybody had their mouths open, and it hit me. I don't want to do wills and trusts. I want to hear these stories. This guy was amazing. And I ended up interviewing him maybe about 5 weeks later. And that's what I love doing. Now,
so let me ask you a question based on what Dr. Mencia said. I know I had a very strong family relationship, my grandmothers and all, and I realize what you're saying, and that did help me. Did you have a big family, important relationship?
Yeah, well, not a big family. We have a small family, but I had my mother and father had 2 grandmothers who I was close with. But but Emma, you heard me talk about Emma. I had a nanny. I had a black woman living with my family. She's my grandmother. When I do speeches, I like doing that. I go, "This is my grandmother, Emma Foote," and I wait because there's obviously a complexion difference. Yeah. But she was, and now when I was younger, Emma wasn't old the way we'd say it, but she grew. She died at 102. So she grew, and Emma is the epicenter of what Eldercation is all about. That I would go to Emma to ask. I always refer to Emma as a human sedative. Whenever I would go to Emma, something about her just would calm me down all the time. But it was more than her. It was my gardener. I didn't realize it, Dr. Macias. I was attracted to older people my whole life. And it didn't dawn on me until I wrote the book. I had to go back. My editor was pushing me. The Maury and Irma, the produce people, they were older. My faculty advisor was older. She was a geriatric sociologist, actually. So many people in my life. I could list a million of them right now, probably. I just gravitated towards them. So there's something in me.
There is something, but it's me too.
You too,
and so I'm listening to this.
Absolutely.
One thing I think about in Miami Beach, where I grew up, my family didn't have a lot of money, and a lot of people did. And I always guess I felt like I was, however you feel when other people have a lot of money and you don't. But the older people were always there to be kind and nice to me compared to some of the people in school that had their, only their ways. And I always attribute some of that because they were always there to listen to me and be sweet no matter who I was. They didn't care. As compared to people my age at the time who were, had a different lifestyle. And so I guess maybe that was why I've asked this of you. There must be something in our background. And you explained about your family, and I was thinking about mine, and you were talking about it. And now we want to be able to either pay back or find out what we can do to help them, but we're still being nurtured all the time.
And we're also pushing back. I want to hear what the doctor has to say, or both of you.
No.
We're pushing back against a very powerful marketing, I don't even know what you call it, force in our culture, American culture. Youth, wrinkle-free everything, Madison Avenue. It is all about young, 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 which is changing. We were talking, Anita and I were talking about, you're seeing it in movies now. Older actors, the roles are changing. It's this acceptance because the boomers are the power, right? But it's a very powerful, that youth and faster, everything. To be fast is important. Well, when you don't move as fast, I always use the records idea, 33, 45, 78. The society's moving at 78, and the seniors are moving more like 33. They're looked down on. They're frowned on, and it's hard. And that I despise that. It really bothers me. Maybe it's because I'm starting to move a little slower, but
no, that's nothing to do with it.
No, and I'm actually not. I think I actually am more active now in some ways than I was when I was younger. But that is a very powerful force and I love this country. I don't want to talk America down, but it's an issue that I'd like to see. People call me a dreamer because I'm pushing up against that. How do you change that? I think it's happening on its own.
Absolutely, and as the baby boomer move forward now, I guess society will get to appreciate what does it mean to age in a given society. And as American, that's one thing that we still in diapers, learning what does it mean to age. The beauty of aging and the worth of knowledge that is there, life. It is said that we learn when we are young, we understand when we are older.
I love that.
So we are moving now to more of a, people are understanding better. And one of the beauty of what I have learned from taking care of patients for the past 20 years, the elderly. What I have learned is that they are happy to give love. Whereas a younger person, we are more strict on who are we going to love, who are we going to say, I care for you. And,
Good
you
point.
know, I was telling my office manager, I told him, I want to hold my paycheck. And because I want to make sure if I didn't hold my paycheck, I couldn't align the bonuses for the entire staff. And when I bonus, end of the year bonus for me, is that if you are working for me for the past week, you deserve something because you are already part of the family. Even if you started yesterday and bonuses are going to be today, we have to do something for you, even if it's small token. So when we look, the company had grown. Now we open another office in Boynton. So when I look at the bonus, I say, it is simple, my controller. I say, simple, hold my check. I'm not catching my check. And let's set the bonuses the way I feel, it should be, so everybody get what they deserve from this company.
And I don't know.
And you know what he did?
What did he?
He said, I'm going to hold my check.
Oh no, he did. He did. Dr. Dharma,
that's
right?
A beautiful, but
Isn't that fabulous?
That's how you make change.
Absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
But if you haven't been to his office, I mean, it is like a family. I mean, when people come in, here's the doctor himself, walks out, gives his patients the hugs first thing. No, I mean, he is extraordinary, and I've told you that before. But
I'm glad I'm meeting you.
And the patient, they appreciate the hug so much. Sometimes they come in and they say, well, what brings you by today? I don't know. I'm happy I'm here. Just check me out because I really... But when they're at home, they say, I'm developing a cold or I'm having a little urinary tract infection. I need to be checked. And before they walk out, I say, I was coming in because I think I have a urinary tract infection.
Well, Harry, I know that this was your time, but I wanted you to meet Dr. Mencia because I think it was very our time. Very important because he does hold a lot of the keys that you were talking about.
This was great.
Yeah, I love to get together.
Right, he ought to be your ambassador.
I've heard a lot about. I've met you before at the Cure Symposium.
Yes, at the Cure. No, I don't think it was at Cure, but he's been at a lot of other things. Oh, he's been at the Expo.
All right.
The Expo.
Right. But anyway, thank you very much, Harry. I mean, you can hang around here and listen to Dr. Mencia because what I'm going to do is spend time talking about how well he's taking care of my husband. So I guess we're going off, aren't we now? Okay. We'll be right back with Dr. Mencia.